Welcome, everyone, to our live talk this afternoon. Welcome to Our Soil 2024 again. I'm Matt Powers, your host, and we're going to be starting here in just a second. We have folks arriving. They'll arrive for a few minutes. We're going to do our giveaways. Well, the first giveaways. We'll do giveaways at the end as well. But as folks arrive, we'll start the giveaways because you guys were all prompt. So might as well, give you guys a chance. All right, good to see you all. Thank you for being here. I'm excited. I'm so excited. I've I always try to level it up. I taught presentation in high school, and then I've coached people and presenting and speaking, and now almost, I mean, it's over 15 years now. I think it's 16 years. And so it is a joy to be here. It is a joy to present to you, to share what is best in compost. All right, thank you for being here. So I just got I'm a little maybe a little not out of breath now, but I was for a minute there before you guys arrived. I had to regulate my breathing because I just brought in case after case of cute, unbelievably cute little EM bottles. Look at this. Unbelievable. Look at that. How cute is this? Yeah. So I got boxes and boxes of these to share with you all. So I am so excited to do just that. So we'll start with a goodie bag giveaway. And the goodie bag has EM1 in it. It has this is from Blue Sky Biochar. It's Bokashi, but it's actually Terraganus Bokashi because it's the best Bokashi that Michael Whitman has ever found. And he's been testing and trialing different Bokashis for many, many years from all sorts of folks, and this is the best. And we have matcha, with lion's mane in it from Mycomedicinal, Host Defense Mushrooms. Mycomedicinals is the book Paul Stamets wrote. This is Paul's company, Fungi Perfecti. And then we have Azospirillum, which partners with mycorrhizal fungi. So there's a bacteria that partners synergistically together. These are both from Extreme Gardening. They are amazing. And it's because they follow natural principles. And I've gotten to speak with the folks inside on their team, and I've been nothing but impressed. So, and then Blue Sky Biochar's wood vinegar. We got a lot from Blue Sky Biochar. We have biochar. So incredible biochar. And this is like really, really fine, beautiful stuff. You can use this for a lot of different applications. And we all can make the chunky stuff at home, you know what I mean? We all can make, the big biochar and stuff. But this finer stuff, especially the dust that he sells biochar dust. It's excellent for long-term seed saving. It's remarkable. Folks are still arriving. So, and this isn't it. We're also going to have we're going for the folks that sign up to get goodie bags. They're going to get everything but the book. And for the folks who sign up for the discount and the raffle and all that crazy stuff, they're going to be able to get a book. So this is, and I'll be giving a book away later too. I have giveaways of everything, of the goodie bags, so that you guys can see it all and we can just have fun, So, and the giveaway after I'm done is a big one. If you've dreamed of it, it's here. I'm giving it away. The microbiometer. So this will be after my presentation. So I always try to level up. This presentation really levels up anything I've done before in this regard. Maybe you've seen composting for your context and all that. Not going to be that. I'm always leveling up, and I'm really excited to dive into this with you guys. But first, we got to do these giveaways. So the first giveaway will be a goodie bag, and then we'll do the book. So what is one thing that you've seen dramatically improve? And this could be, your garden. This could be a certain plant. This could be a certain year with certain compost. That story, where's that one story, I'm going to tell a few stories today of my experience, uh, trialing things and making mistakes and learning. But like, what's one of those stories of success for you? Wood chip mulch, you get the idea. Worm casting tea. Yeah, you guys have got it. Compost extract. Oh, this is my community. Yes. And this is it. This is it. What you see here playing out in the comments right now, folks, is the truth. Everyone has had success with such a wide variety. You see Johnson Su, you see acidic anaerobic fermentation, you see reducing weed pressure, raising consciousness, all of it, cover crops, worm castings, planting natives. And there's so many duplicates. That's why I'm scrolling further because I've already said, but people are echoing each other. Humic acid, saving my own seeds. EM has increased my plant vigor. So this this is a wide range of expression and they're all successful. This should tell us something about our community, should tell us something about how nature works. Nature has all these different pathways. Learning fungal versus bacterial lovers. Mikara, thank you for being here, Mikara. I love it. Mikara, I want to give you a goodie bag. So the way to do that is you're going to email me. And everyone, when you win something, I'm going to ask you to email me. I go back to these videos. I do them at the beginning and the end, so they're easy to find. And so you email me your address. My email is mattpowerssoil@gmail.com or matt@thepermaculturestudent.com. Either one. So it's just so awesome because you know it's true. You did it, and it was a successful experiment. And you see other people having the same success, but then you also see other people doing things differently. That's nature. That is the multiplicity of expression, the ecosystem of niches organizing itself and interacting, and all of them cycling different nutrients in different ways. So it's powerful, it's exciting, and I love to see it. I love to see it. Worm casting tea heals sick bush. Woo! Yes. Punzo. Maybe it's some of its spirit or positive energy you're using too. Well, I think being connected with the world around you grounds you because you don't have this anxiety of separation and disconnection with the world. You have a knowing. You have a relationship with it. You're connected to it. You're part of it. And so that in and of itself is, I believe, going to affect us. It's part of that expanding the consciousness, I believe. All right. And kelp seed treatment. That's awesome. Sarah K says microscope. Lori H says leaves, leaves, leaves. Just gathered, started with anything else. Yeah, I love it, Lori. Lori, I want to give you this book. So email me at mattpowersoil@gmail.com or matt@thepermaculturestudent.com. Either way, it'll reach me. And I'm going to send you this book. All right. And we will do another goodie bag and the kit afterwards and maybe a t-shirt. We'll see. All right. Here we go. I'm going to share the screen now. Actually, Rich, would you mind letting folks in while I present? Sweet, you're the best. All right. I appreciate it. Here we go. So I kind of gave it away already in the title, didn't I? The best compost, quotation marks. You're already asking yourself, well, what do you mean by that, Matt? Well, let's start here. Do you have a bad compost story? I know you're just asking for a positive story, but do you have that story where everything went wrong that summer or that spring? And well, I do. Over a decade ago, early in the second year of gardening, after my first season, I loved it. I was so confident. It was so easy. The critters hadn't found it yet. I was using up the nutrients that were there instead of like really making it regenerative and understanding. I just was beginning, put seeds in the ground, and my father-in-law, we were living on the same site as my father-in-law and his parents. And so he really meant well. Let me fix this right here. Let me fix one thing. Forgive me 1 second. All right, sweet. I just had to adjust that. All right. So my father-in-law, he meant well, but he got this manure and it was compost, but it was bull manure, which was composted, and it was BS compost. It was not compost. Yeah, so it was literally bull manure. So, and it was hot. Have you ever gotten the hot compost? You thought it was okay? You applied it? What happened? Do you remember? It burned everything, right? It caused all this green growth, no fruit. So you had this vigorous growth and then like giant corn and no corn ears. You had these giant tomato plants, no tomatoes. You had this huge expression, and it's hot because it's high in nitrates. So all that nitrogen is in an oxidized form, and it's stressful. It's too much. So what do you think happened in your situation? Is it something like that? Like if you had only known, yeah, usually it is. It grows weeds. It grew plants without fruit. And realistically, I was stuck in vegetative growth, but I didn't understand it. It wasn't clear to me at the time. But it also implies I was alkaline. Here, you can see that it's pH 7 and up. That is nitrate. It's actually, when we're talking about microbial manures, if it's below pH 7, it's going to be ammonium because it's acidic. The H pluses are the acidity. The protons are how you measure pH acidity. pH alkalinity is measured in hydroxide, which is the, that's where the O is coming in, the oxygen, and that's what combines there. It's oxidized. So it's obviously not the best, right? But I want to start there so that we understand how it's contextual, right? Because not all composts are finished. A lot of people have tried compost and be really discouraged. Your compost wasn't done. But there's even more to it. Hot compost is always going to be alkaline and oxidized. You can get it down to like more neutral, but that implies that you started with something even more acidic. And so it is the process of the heat is oxidizing. We talk about how, a flame is oxidation. We talk about inflammation in the body is oxidative stress. Oxygen is the liberation of energy. And so that's where that heat comes from, but is also the liberation of the energy that your soil needs. So we got to keep all this in mind. Not all composts fit your context. And that's okay. But wait, before I get any further, who am I? I'm Matt Powers. I was a ski racer growing up. I loved racing. I loved the mountains. This is why when I got into permaculture, all those topographic maps made so much sense to me because that's all I looked at growing up. But then I became a musician after knee surgery, after failing to make it to Junior Olympics. It was like, anyway, it was a total career switch when I was 15. I was a very serious racer, full time, going away to school for it. And then after knee surgery, I became a full-time musician. And this was my world. It's all I did. I was a touring musician. I got to play with some incredible people. And in the process of that life, I got to meet my wife. And when we got married, and within a year of us being 2 years. Within 2 years, no, it was 2.5. 2.5 years of being married, she got diagnosed with cancer. And she had her thyroid removed, and then she had the radiation, which caused more cancer. And this was super hard to deal with because we had a baby. Our son was just about one, and she had to be away from him. I think it was 2 months. It was such a stressful time period, but it was about 2 months that my son had to be with his aunt and couldn't be physically around his mom. And if you know what that's like, sorry, I just heard some. Let me just mute everyone. Sorry, I don't want to get feedback on the sound. Thanks. All right. And so what happened was in the process of her recovering, she wanted to recover with her mom. She prayed about it and said, I think is what we're meant to do. And you know, those times when you pray about something and you get the answer you don't want. Yeah, I didn't want to leave that job. It was easy and it was fun. I was just a bass player. I got to just kind of do whatever, you know? And I just played four strings. It was a simple life. And so but I got the answer that I had to leave. And so we left, but it was all meant to be because this was the process of me becoming a teacher. I became a substitute. And meanwhile, my wife kept getting cancer and so I had to get a job. I had to get a steady income and healthcare. And so I became Mr. Powers, and we had our other child, started mixing food and heirloom seeds and gardening and with English. And the school totally fostered this. They totally allowed this. They gave me a garden. They totally let me go crazy. This little guy started coming to school with me, and I mean, we homeschooled, and so he would come to school with me a lot. And if you look in the back, you'll see the little toesies of my younger son. These are young men now. They are big. But once upon a time they were little and we just grew up. They grew up, you know, in the soil, working the land, me teaching them. Man, it's wild. This was such a sweet time period to be able to raise my kids doing all this. And I fell in love with the soil. I fell in love with seeds. I fell in love with permaculture and I started a curriculum. Yes, this is a caricature of me from one of my books, but this is like kind of what it's based off of. You know, I did sow seeds on soil that I had transformed, and this is the growth. And it was as it became less oxidized, that amaranth did shrink because that's an oxidized soil loving plant. And I did things that were, very difficult. This was grown in 140-degree soil. Yes, I have the measurements to show that. It was crazy, but this is 3 months in with no water. So it's even crazier. So I got really into it, had a lot of success, and then I wrote the first curriculum for K through 12 for permaculture. And and it went viral. It went all over the world, got translated, worked with all sorts of people, became a speaker, started helping different organizations, and in the process became a citizen scientist. My kids, this is them little still. They do not like the older one, the big one, he's got like a beard now. The younger one, he's as tall as the other one. It's unbelievable. They're men. They're young men. And so I just always put that up there because folks think I have babies still, and I don't. They're men, they're young men, and I'm so proud of them. And in the process of raising my kids, teaching and serving the community, I've been able to craft over 24 different publications on permaculture, soil, microscopy, enthusiasm, regeneration, regenerative careers, and children's stories like the magic beans and the forgotten food forest. It's been an amazing journey, and it's all the past decade of this work has been to create that bridge, that educational bridge to the regenerative future, which is the regenerative economy. We have to have education that leads to businesses that are successful and skills that are marketable and competitive, so that that regenerative economy has workers that are skilled in those ways and prepared for that economy to succeed in that economy. And so I was, I'm a high school teacher, I was a high school English teacher before I retired.
And I also taught music, and I was credentialed to teach history, and we're starting a humanities program. But that is where I still am with my heart. I am building I'm creating the bridge for those kids and now adults with families to, and also adults like all of us too. But it was really about those kids that I was serving in that community where it all began for me. So that's why I do what I do. That's why I'm here. And that's why I'm still, facilitating. That's why we have people who this is their first time speaking, and I've done my teacher thing, I've filled in the gaps and they're like, well, I don't know how to do this. I'm like, well, I'll help you. I'll show you how to do that. And everyone's different. Some people it's the technology. Some people it's the outline. Some people it's just they need to work through the idea with you. And it's the same thing I was doing 14 years ago in a classroom with just laptops, and you had to present. It was actually a presentation, stand and deliver based school. So I'm just doing the same thing. That's why you see all these different people from all these different walks of life, uh, because I'm facilitating, and that's what I love to do. So that's why I'm here to facilitate, and that's what today is about. Because what is best really depends on you. So where do you live? What's your soil type? What's your pH? Because I don't know if you guys have seen this from my book, The Permaculture Student 2 or Regenerative Soil, but I created this years ago with Dr. Elaine Ingham, working one-on-one to create this. And this is only a piece of the picture, but it's a very important piece. It's a dominant piece. Just not all the different ecosystems work this way. I'll be able to show you that in a second. But we think about it along pH lines in a standard way like this, but zinc works that way, but not all of them do. The reality is it really depends on your context. And so I mean, look, if you just look here in terms of pH, pH is being determined by the plant in the rhizosphere. You look down there and they're releasing protons acidifying, or they're releasing hydroxide alkalinizing. And they're doing that constantly. And different plants do this under stress. They start releasing hydroxide because they're stressed, or they're releasing hydroxide because they're a weed and non-mycorrhizal. These are all important questions to ask. Where are you? Because what you put in has an agenda, has a desire. And then what's your EH? This is dryness and wetness. This is the other part of the equation. And so if you look down at that bottom right, alkaline and reduced, so low EH and high pH, it's not desert, it's compacted waterlogged soils. So you'll see that expression, in the brackish near the wetlands, near the coast. You'll see this in swamplands, marshlands, those kinds of things. But you'll also see that in certain peat bogs too, acidic and reduced. That's the peat bog. And then acid and oxidized, that's dried out soil, but it's soil that is mineral wise, acidic. Did you know that high aluminum soils are naturally acidic? And so if they get too acidic below 5.5, you'll solubilize that aluminum and uptake it into the plant. And no one wants that. So understanding where you are at this nuanced level is what I introduced in regenerative soil, and this is me just introducing to my community and to a lot of people, Olivia Huson, Dr. Olivia Huson's work. John Kemp is the lead in this, I would say. I learned about Olivia from him, and then I learned one-on-one from Olivia. So this this is the reality for nitrogen. Look at that. And you're like, oh, holy cow, wait, that's complicated. Yeah. So as things dry out, you have a severe change in expression depending on where you are in terms of pH. So if you had a certain pH and you let it get dry, you're going to have a different expression. And they're all different. I mean, look at the ones that are all red. These are all images from regenerative soil. I have the pH charts in there and I color coded it to make it easier to understand. It it is the case that that doesn't exist in any other trade and university level book like that. That's why I did it because you can generate these things with machines. Well, not programmed machines, online engines, I should say. Oh, Vincenzo's here. Okay, let's let Vincenzo in. That'd be sweet. All right. It's so great to see so many folks here that I know. Hello, Vincenzo. Thank you for being here. Much love. All right. So this is it broken down super, super simple. When you go to the extremes, you can understand each of these areas. Well, you've got like the waterlogged, compacted, alkaline reduced. You've got the acid reduced peat bog. And often the bottom alkaline reduced one is the brackish one, the salty one. And then alkaline oxidized, right? That, well, I guess on camera I'm over here for the alkaline oxidized. Okay. Sorry. Over here, alkaline oxidized, top right corner. That, I mean, look at it. That's the desert. And that's California. That's Arizona, right? And then acidic oxidized, that's Montana. That's that's where Crystal is in Australia, my student. We'll talk about her in a second. So the question is, not only where are you, but are you cycling? Because there's different levels to all of this. You've got the hardware, which is the minerals. You've got the software, which is the organic matter. And that's also your operating system and your battery. So it's more fungal. It's going to be more perennial. It's more bacterial. It's going to be more annual. And then you got the operators of the system, the soil food web. And then, yeah, that's the battery. Yeah, that's all of this. But what plugs it all in? Photosynthesis. The sun is powering it all. And when I update that book, this is from Regenerative Soil. Of course, this is also from there. But when I update that book, I'm going to put the sun and plants into that equation, kind of like over it all, because, or above it, maybe. Yeah, above it. Because not only is it that's the truth, like I was just explaining, but that's what Ray Archuleta has asked me to do. And I love Ray. I'm so happy to have him as a part of our Soil 2024. He is an absolute powerhouse and such a good man. So I just want to like do that, and honor him for that edit. All right, so we've got all these cycles. Where are you in your cycle for that mineral? And then when you start figuring out where you are in the cycles, and then you figure out where, the antagonism, you can really figure out what's blocking you, why. And with a new machine that's coming, we're going to be able to test your plant leaves in situ in real time and get a toot toot read and tell you if those minerals are actually reaching your plant. So if you get a plant soil test and there's antagonism, that doesn't show up. You just get all the raw minerals. It doesn't show you that these ones are the ones fighting. No, but now you'll be able to tell. Be like, man, my plant's not getting molybdenum. I better call John Kemp up or AEA and get some chelated molybdenum and add it at just the finest, smallest amount, and then do it as a foliar spray for my acreage. And then I'm going to have, a 10x moment with my crops. So where are you in your cycles? Let's talk about Crystal. So Crystal, she's a student of mine. She is such a positive person. She is a powerhouse as well. She is an avid learner. She's one of those people who, as a teacher, you just really appreciate because she watches the courses and goes through them all meticulously 2 to 3 times and then embodies things and understands things at such a depth that she has the fluency. She's reached fluency in many ways. And she's also, asking really good questions because that's a sign of fluency is when you start asking fundamentally powerful questions. And so in the such a great example. Let's talk about her soil because it's Australian soil. You guys know Australia didn't get those ice ages, so it didn't have the tillage of glaciation, and obviously it got an ice age where it dried it out. But I'm talking about glaciation ice age. They didn't get that, so their soils are ancient and really weathered and degraded. They're acidic and oxidized in her part of Australia. Obviously, it's a giant place and there is variation of things, but in her area, it's acidic and oxidized. And the acidity is aluminum in many ways. And so there's aluminum that is potentially being released because she's at 5.3 at times. And remember, when reduction is linked to moisture and not just your minerals, the moisture levels can push you more acidic and cause a situation where you're releasing that aluminum and right, you get me. She did too. She understood, and that's why she's doing well. We'll talk about it in a second. So there's aluminum uptake, and she's doing hot compost because it's alkaline and oxidized. So that's going to pull it out of of that acidic zone, but she's going to keep adding that organic matter. And yes, I know it's oxidized, but it has the effect when it's combined with all that acidity of going back towards all organic matter does this naturally. It's a buffer. It all leads you over time back to pH 7 because it's a buffer. So the more organic matter, the more buffering you have. So fermentation is reductive. And so you you want to do the hot compost because it's going to keep it alkaline because it's all oxidized, right? That's where the heat's coming from. So I wouldn't recommend doing EM at first. You know what I mean? I don't want to draw it down further acidic. That's 3.5 pH. We don't want to necessarily be doing that. Maybe we do that and then we do a hot compost tea afterwards and bring things back up. You know what I mean? We got to be strategic. So, water also reduces. So we want to think about that. You want to recognize that it's different in different places. And so Central Valley, California soil, this is where I started out. You can see the bark beetle damage here, the reddish. You can also see where it's burned and the trees are dead. It's denuding. It is dying. It's decomposed granite. It looks like sand. See, I told you it was 140 degrees. It's hot. This is what happens when soil just sits in the sun, though. The ambient temp may be 112, but when it sits in the sun all day, that the temperature continues to compound. And we all know this, right? So it's optimal. This is optimal temperature for composting, right? So it's sterilizing the soil just by being itself at this point. And you can see that watered but bare is not much better. I mean, you're pulling 15 degrees, 12, 15 degrees off that. But mulch, good mulch. You see how it's ramial mulch there? You got twigs in there, Matt. I know. I wanted to make sure that thing's cooled off. And look how much. And I'm not talking, this isn't feet of mulch here. This is 6 inches of mulch. I went and picked this up and shoveled it off someone else's property myself. There was a limited amount I could do with my back, but just that 6 inches. Look at that. Yeah. Protect your soil. Keep it covered. It was alkaline and oxidized. It was high pH. And I mean, look at it. You can tell it's oxidized. It's basically so oxidized and alkaline that it's turning whitish, right? Still growing though. But that means it's locked out nutrients. Alkaline oxidized. If we go back to that chart that's in Regenerative Soil, the book that I just gave out, that literally is lockout central. When it's really acidic, that's where you get toxicity quite easily because heavy metals are being released. And no, 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 no. So this is lockout. That's allowing the bad things in. It's different. But you guys know this. You've struggled. If you're in California, you know the struggle. You're like, man, I'm fighting the hydrophobia. It's hydrophobic soil. I'm fighting the The weeds are so strong. Yeah, because it's their environment that they thrive in. They love the alkaline, oxidized, and they're non-mycorrhizal. But we can fight back. I used a lot of compost tea. Well, I'll get into that. I love cowpeas. I think they're a secret weapon for many of us in the hot climate. I used cowpeas on this. I created swales. See the mini swale in the swale, and I covered it. And it did grow really well. It was a complete success. This is Central Valley, California, right above Fresno. We did it all as a family. It was a precious sweet time. I was so grateful to have had this way of raising my children. And they grew up with, aunts and uncles, like multiple aunts, multiple uncles, all within 15 minutes. So it just was a special time. And they learned all these skills just by being there, doing it with me. So my kids, it's funny. We'll be out to dinner sometimes and someone will say something and they'll be like interrupt them and be like, listen, no, 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 no. Don't do any of that. What you need to do is you need to find where the key line is. You need to rehydrate the landscape. And I'm like, and he's like, you need to create access. I'm like, Darren Doherty, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and so my kids have grown up with this. And this is, the compost that we were created with this manure. And this is compost that we created with chicken scraps and straw. And I actually the chickens. This is a modified compost method based off of Jeff Lawton's chicken tractor composting method. The chickens tear it all apart, manure all over it, peck at it, and you rebuild it, and it heats back up, and they do it all over again. I threw a bunch of feed on it to get them going crazy. This was a long time ago. This was a lot of fun though. This was my first large compost tea barrel, and I have a larger aerator on it now, though I've learned so much since then. What I was doing was lower air, smaller bubbles, and I was adding kefir grains as biocontrol. So if you know lactic acid bacteria, you know exactly what I was unintentionally but awesomely doing. So it was really okay that it was a lower flow of air because there was a biocontrol element. It was partial fermentation, water kefir happening, partial compost tea. It's really interesting. And I did it all unintentionally because I was constantly putting excess water kefir grains into my compost, and it was a pit compost, so those grains were covered and it held moisture. It was California in the Central Valley, so that that really created this incubator. It was hot, but I kept it moist. I had to keep it moist to keep it, in those August temperatures. So it just was a very unique situation, and in retrospect, I've come to really understand it. But at the time, and I feel like you probably have a story like that too. Oh my gosh, Andy's joining us. Hey, Andy, one of our speakers is joining us right now, folks. Feel free in the chat to welcome Andy. Hey, Andy, thank you for being here. But I bet you guys all have stories of things you did that you did from an inner knowing or from an experiment or a notion or a gut notion or an idea or or you're just doing it because this is compost. We got it. Put it in the compost and it's beer mash or something unique. And it was beer mash. So you're going to get like buckets of it from the guy and there's an effect from that. And so you're seeing these changes. You probably have a story like that. Well, this is mine. This is my like origin story mine of working with soil. It went from this to this. It melted it. And decomposed granite does this, but it's because it was so reduced, because it was so much more acidic. We melted it and we transformed the soil. And farmers, generational farmers and ranchers and orchardists from around the area came to my house. And on film, at one point, I dug down to my shoulder and it was all like this. And what I was demonstrating, because people were like down to your shoulder, it was a swale, so it was lifted ground, but I was trying to show the difference between the lifted ground and the original ground that I mounted it onto. And so I was trying to find the differentiation layer between the original soil and what I did on top, and I couldn't find it. And I was looking for the color differentiation, looking for a change, and it was all the same. And this is what it is to broad fork and to amend properly, and then to regularly be adding compost teas that you don't dilute. Because my thinking early on was, well, you just add compost, you say that's good, but then you water down the compost in the compost barrel. Why would you water it down again? And so, again, this is part of the reason why it was so acidic. I didn't water it down. I never watered it down, folks. And I know that's the recommendation. I honor the people who, like Elaine Ingham, who pioneered this. I share those recommendations, but I also tell people I never watered it down. And that's one of the reasons why I had this crazy effect. So I did pit composting. I'm building a new pit compost right now. I have a Johnson Sioux. Feel like the pit compost is just going to be this. I mean, if you think about indigenous microorganisms, the pit compost is surrounded by them, right? And a high water table like I'm in, it also is an inoculating experience. So I'm doing that again. And it's because of those results. I am now in Central Texas, and the soil down here, let's see if this will play. Oh, no, no, no. Come on. Let me see if I can get this to play. What do you think? So it's good for pond making, but it's also sand. So we have these two extremes. We've got serious clay, calicky clay, and then we've got in areas layers of alum, and then we have, because it's Alum Creek that runs through here, and then we have uh sand, and it's sand like the beach. Do you guys see the flow of water? Yeah. When we have high water tables, and then it flows like the shore. And so we have water moving over the land. And do you guys just see, look, do you see the pathway of water? How it swirled through here? And I had planted in rows the other direction, perpendicular to the flow of water, perpendicular to down, right? The slope. This is all permaculture stuff. You know it. But you guys can see it is just sand. And you also can see my biochar, right? My biochar is there. My chunky DIY at home biochar. But you can also see an artichoke plant there, bean, and yeah. And so this was right when I was planting at the beginning. But it's alkaline and oxidized, but it's very different from decomposed granite. It's fine sand. It's not chunky like that. And it's lots of locked out nutrients. It's high pH and high pH water. The whole water table here is on top of limestone. So we're talking about seriously pH 8 to 9. And then it's also high salinity on top of it. It's salty. This whole area used to be under the Gulf. It used to be an ocean. And that's why people find fossils from the ocean, but the ocean millions of years ago. And there's also high winds. So I have things that are like sadly kind of knocked to the ground, but they're figs. So they'll resprout. And this time they'll be like, well, I'm going to be stuck here. So it's okay. But it's high winds and it's high water table. Like I mentioned before, it's more difficult than California because the greater extremes. Here, the winter is so extreme that it killed generational oak trees. Trees that were 50 years old or older exploded and broke and died during how cold it got. So it got so cold here, it was like the 150-year cycle cold. So it gets that cold here in Texas. different from California. And so I had all these California trees that we had planted. They died. And so you really have to have Texas hardy trees because their extremes are so huge. So it gets so hot, it also gets so cold. So what am I doing? Well, I'm building up the soil organic matter. I'm keeping it covered, growing cowpeas like crazy, growing long beans, growing all sorts of beans. I'm doing ramial wood chips. You can see all those leaves in there. I'm doing rock dust covered biochar. We're doing EM. I love EM. And this is a 55-gallon barrel of EM. Yes, I let off the tension. It's okay. It stretches. It's fine. It's really not a big deal. But you need it actually to pull up to create some pressure because EM, when you shift from eating all the sugars and all you have left is CO2, and you have that pressure, meaning there's a lot of it, you use that CO2. So those microbes, there's actually a secondary feeding cycle that happens as it basically is secession. The microbe has its own secession. So purple and silver bacteria in later secession starts eating CO2, and then they start releasing a whole nother wave of protons. The first wave where they're eating the sugar releases protons, and then anyway, yeast and does the same thing. So so they're all working together doing this. And I'm soaking my seeds in these biofertilizers. I'm adding kelp. I added kelp meal into the field when I planted it. I also make brews that I am pumping out into the site and applying as foliar sprays. You can see here that the 55-gallon barrel, and I can kind of put whatever I want in there. And then there's my aeration, but that's also my delivery pump below there. So I can switch to that, and I can deliver it anywhere. And it delivers at pressure. So I can put my thumb on the end and then make it a spray that goes 50 feet. So it's a useful thing to have, the ability to pump water from anywhere, at force without like the need. And if you have got low flow for your water, this is a way that you can increase the flow so that if you want to do drip irrigation, but you don't have the pressure, that's how you do that. And then I was inoculating everything as I put it in with just like this. Look, we're just walking the walk and talking the talk here, folks. Yeah, I'm giving you what I know and love. I finally was able to reach these folks, Extreme Gardening, and explain to them who I was, how I've literally been writing books with their things in it, as showcasing their mycological product. And so their mycorrhizal fungi is the best that I've found. I love it, and that's what I use. This is the area. It's really lanes. It's I was doing lanes of perennials, lanes of annuals. So it's an agroforestry system. I have a lane of composting. Uh, I mow essentially and then put it here. And this steamy picture is the sand. It is literally sandbox sand. I don't know how to explain it any other way. It is wild. But as we get increase organic matter, you can see moving left to right how there's more structure, how there's just it's chunkier. There's more, obviously more organic matter in it, and it's also darker. And this is the progression. And you can also, if I dig down deep enough past over all that new organic matter I've been able to acquire or accumulate, is you see the sand again, except it's darker because the smaller carbon and humic compounds are leaching downward. And you can really see it right here. This is the topsoil. It is really, really organic. But you can also see the specks. That's the sand. And so when we talk about, oh, organic matter is a buffer, literally, organic matter is putting spacers in between the physical minerals, literally. And then as they break down, glomming onto each other and making this combination of everything, right? But you can see that it's literally buffering it by coating it, by separating it physically. And that's why it works. And we've been able to see some great results. Been able to double the organic matter. And that's, I'm going to be testing that again, of course. And the melons this year were wild. Squash were great. Melons were just wild. Squash they were wild. I had a lot of fun. So the next level, well, my goals, right? For Texas at a large scale, it's 2 to 3% organic matter is like Goldilocks. You can go a little bit higher, especially if you're gardening, especially if you're doing market gardening and really adding to it in a dedicated way every season. But large scale farmers, 2 to 3, that's you've done it. You're in a great spot. And we want to lower the pH closer to 7 with the understanding that even if it's above 7, that the rhizosphere acidifies. So, well, we'll get into that. So, better structure and aggregation, more fungi, more testate amoeba, and more nematodes specifically. And all tests are averages. We just got to remember that. So, most roots acidify the soil, when the mycorrhizal ones do. And thus the average will read more alkaline than the rhizosphere always. So it's always going to read more alkaline. So if you're like 7.5, your plants are going to be able to if you, especially if you're feeding them the right things and you're supporting them and you inoculate those roots with the right fungi, it's going to be able to compensate for that and hit the Goldilocks because of those averages. So what more can I do? Well, I'm going to be crimping the cover crops instead of flail mowing and mulching in place finally, because that releases too much of the nitrogen too fast, causes a shock and changes the biology or the hierarchy and ratios of the biology for a short period of time and then senesces. So it's not a stability move. It's not a successional move. And it's extreme. And we've all been guilty of it. I mean, I have for years been flail mowing, mulching in place, and I need to start crimping. And a lot of people are doing crimping and then covering but crimping itself can be like a covering, like a tarping, and then heavy ramial mulching. So covering things with a lot of coverage, 6 inches of ramial mulch would be incredible. In some situations, what is best will change over time as well as you reach Goldilocks. So, with our area though, with alkaline water and alkaline bedrock, there's always going to be this rub that we have to work against. So the question is, which compost is best for your system, though? I wanted to show you that as the case study, so that you would understand and see how it applies to me and is different from where I was, different from Crystal, different from you. But let's start digging into actual solutions and different ways to approach this, so that you guys can walk away with something actionable. We want to maintain good soils, but we also want to transform unproductive soils. So maintaining versus transforming is quite often a question that doesn't get asked. It's always we're always headed somewhere. What happens when we arrive? So if your soil is too acidic, you might want your compost to be alkaline. If your soil is too alkaline, you might want your compost to be acidic or at least neutral. Are you transforming your soil, or are you maintaining it? What does your soil need? What do your plants need? All right, let's talk about the types of compost. And we'll touch upon a bunch here, but I'm going to touch upon the principles and the ideas behind the methods, because that'll ground us in a way that'll give us fluency to be able to understand these things, regardless of the names people use, regardless of the method of the day. Oxidative versus fermentation. Oxidation is the loss of energy, and it's a fast breakdown for a lot of things. Fermentation Fermentation is often without oxygen, so it's a closed system. It's anaerobic, lacking air. And a lot of people have been told to be afraid of that. But beer and pickling and koji and all these wonderful things that we love are the same exact pathways, often the same exact microbes that we're talking about. So it's not something foreign. Hot compost, it's alkaline and oxidized. The only one I've ever heard of that's not alkalized is taking something so acidic, water plants that's so they're holding so much moisture and wetness, and then they're doing Johnson Su with it. But nonetheless, hot compost, the turning hot compost without the waiting period, that's alkaline and oxidized. That's why all the things I test are pH 8 for the most part. Some of them pH 9, some of them pH 7.5 sometimes. But those are hyper rare. So it's because the hot in the hot compost releases energy. That's what the heat is. It's oxidation. So it's a loss of nutrients, it's a loss of energy. Moldering compost can be acidic, neutral, or alkaline. And this is why Johnson Su has such a wide range of expression. And lots of people are like, it's great. Other people are like, I don't know. It doesn't work well for me. But it's contextual. And they're not testing, so they're not even aware. I remember, and Andy will remember this, I believe. Angel will, if she's here. I was doing an event for Angel at the Austin Public Library, and I said, how many people are pH testing their compost? And it was like crickets. And I was like, how many people are nitrogen testing their compost? Crickets. And it's so critically important because that tells you how you apply it. I mean, from today, you've already learned that your context dictates what moves you make, what actions you take. The ingredients, the methods, and did you test it? So all these things matter. What did you compost? What method did you use? But it comes down to did you test it? Because there is still variation in the Johnson Su. I told you it was wild. There still is variation in the hot compost. Some of those ingredients are so acidic it draws it down. So all those things are factors on the whole, but you must test it to know. And I've seen a wide range of expression, and it comes down to this: if we don't look, we don't see. Got to look both ways on the road. We're going to get sideswiped, you know? And so, is it oxidation or is it fermentation? Is it fungal or is it bacterial? Is it alkaline or is it acidic? Is it high in nitrates or is it low in nitrates? Is it high in phosphorus and thus would inhibit mycorrhizal fungi? All the soils that are been fed phosphate fertilizer that are high in phosphorus, they're inhibiting the mycorrhizal fungi and have pushed it out years ago. That's why bringing back the fungi is so such a big benefit and so possible for so many people because that phosphorus addition, well, it needs to be stopped. You need to like sop up the excess phosphorus. You can do that with EM, but once that's taken care of, it's so powerful. They can get a 30 to 40, up to 30, 40% yield increase per acre by just adding the fungi back. Okay, can you not do that? um, Here, let me fix that. All right. So the question is it low salinity or high salinity? Well, that's a big deal. If you're not checking your salinity, you might be like, what's limiting my plants? Why is my growth? Why are these so? We have salinity issues here. All the water's salty. The wells are salty. The ground already is salty. So it's a big deal. And salting of the earth, we know what that means. And high salinity levels are claiming soil acreage all over the world at an alarming rate. So it's part of the certification. So these questions, they matter. So let's talk about some methods. I want you to have some takeaways here. So moldering static compost, we all know this. Grandma's compost, right? Pit composting, like I was doing, pile composting could even. It could be any of these expressions. We got to test it. Thermophilic hot compost. The Berkeley hot compost method is what most people learned with. This is okay, but it's sometimes works well, sometimes does not. It's better to modify it. This is me making those layers happen. Some eggshells in there. Keeping it watered down. Adding EM. Adding just water. Making sure that it leaks. That is a smaller pile. I make piles much bigger now, but I wanted to show you that. That's actually a recomposting. Um, it's not the first, but it got cold because it got all right. So that was Pacific Northwest, and that here, and that actually was me having to do a recompost because that got cold. How many of us have created a compost and then it got rained on? Or because you might have an open top Johnson Sioux, and then it cooled it all off, took all the nitrogen, leached it out. That's what happened with that. But that's how you layer it. I wanted to show that, um, just the actual layering. There is a video. This is the video. Hold on. This is the video. So this is what I wanted to show you first. So hot compost is a combination of browns, greens, and manure. And you put them in layers, just like I was doing in that video. And you can do it in a little pile or as long as you have enough nitrogen to get the heat, as long as there's enough ambient heat. Um, I was doing mine against a wall. So what happened was the water came down the hill and was watering it and flooding it from the bottom. So I was shifting it. But you gotta also measure it. You have to let it heat up, but you have to keep track of it because if it goes below temperature, you want it to stay hot. And so when I first learned the Berkeley method, I had successes here and there, but it was when I learned from Elaine Ingham that you need to be way looser and focus on your temperatures, focus on moisture. And so 15 to 20 days, 131 to 140, turning 5 times minimum. And it kills weed seeds, pathogens, parasites, and parasite eggs. I tend to do things differently now, because of the benefits of Johnson Sioux. I like the static compost that I originally did, the pit composting. Johnson Sioux is the closest thing to it. And I'm also starting to do pit composting again here. We just when I did the ponds, I put in a pit. So hot compost is alkaline and oxidized, and it also can be tricky if you're like me, where, the pile, you know, did okay, but you wanted to recompost it, it got wet and it leached out the nitrogen, you might recompost it. Or you might have too much nitrogen, you might have a giant wood pile, and then you have a fire start because anaerobes can make alcohols, and you have these giant compost piles that light on fire. So it's a harder thing to hit right, and that's why I really like using hot compost from folks like Catalyst Bioamendments, sponsors for this event and good friends, and folks I feature in my course Regenerative Soil, and also feature their compost and regenerative soil microscopy book and course. And they have exemplary compost. Looking at their stuff under the microscope is a great guide, and their system's amazing. And if you want to start a compost company that's windrow based, they're going to start training. They do train people, and they're going to start doing an online course that is for commercial composting because they've been compost consultants to huge composting operations like LA, Los Angeles. So they're just doing amazing stuff, but it is an art. And it really depends on your ingredients. They have such discretion on the ingredients they accept. And so it's super tailored so they can get a tailored result. Many of us, we are doing composting with what we have, the scraps, the kitchen stuff, and it's hard to hit that the same way every time. That's why vermicompost is so powerful. It's static. That's why EM composting, Bukashi, Johnson Su, all these things that we set it and then let it go much easier. And that example of me having to recompost that pile after it lost its heat is a good one. But I also want to show you physically of me like layering. So turn it if it goes below 131 or above 140 and keep it moist. So if it's not 65 to 70 moisture, like you can squeeze it and get some drops out, keep it won't facilitate the movement of the microbes. The the moisture is the flux for the energetic exchange, is another way to put it. But you don't have to do all that work. You don't have to do all that turning. The Johnson Su composting has been proven to be way more fungal, way more acidic, though it can be alkaline, just as alkaline too. So it's hot compost combined with moldering. It starts off hot and it's both oxidative and it's fermentative. It's both. So this is from regenerative soil. It has these pipes that have holes in it that are in it that allow airflow, and it looks like this. You know, it's a tall column, and this is a mini one. The ones that New Mexico inventor Dr. David Johnson, New Mexico University inventor, they're much bigger. They're huge, but the best ones I've discovered are the ones that are basically pure leaves. And this one has a lot of wood in it. This is Jack Spirkos. He gets really fungal, he combines wood chips with pond plants and like aquatic plants. It's wild. And it can be really tall, it can be squat, it can be really wide. These are Michael Stengel's Johnson Su bioreactors. If you saw his talk earlier, you got to hear from someone who has a lot of experience in this. They have done the reps, and he does recomposting. And so back in the day when I did that, that compost again, I lost the heat. I felt like I had failed, but recomposting is how nature does it, isn't it? It's not like, oh, it broke down this season, we're done. No, Johnson Su, Dr. David Johnson applied it, and then it had benefit from one application for up to 7 years. Yes. So this is the power of the slower decomposition. This is the power of the more fungal, the longer lasting organic matter. So he has done the work. I mean, look at how nice that is. And it's semi-aerated static compost. That's what it is. I mean, look at that. Gorgeous, incredible, pure organic matter soil. Incredible. And then this is Mike Michel Bisson, his Johnson Su large scale composting, and this is in Canada, and this is currently happening right now. And so they're stacked on top of each other. This is it's really wild. This is a large scale, giant composting operation. And this is going to help a lot of people. And then there's EM composting. It controls the heat. It doesn't allow for that nitrogen to be gassed off, that carbon to be gassed off. It's a governor on that heat. It's EM. This is what I do. Okay. So I like static compost. I don't like turning. So I use EM. And I do biocontrol. So IMO preps is another way. It's more intensive for sure. But IMOs, they're endophytes and saprophytes. They're that bandwidth. So IMO, indigenous microorganisms, you've got this whole thing where people are taking semi-cooked rice. It's not fully cooked rice, and they're doing 60%, 75%, depends on which documentation and that you're going off of. But they're putting uncooked rice in there, and then it is staying out there until there's white fluffy mold, zygomycota, likely mucor. This is rice and bread mold essentially, but it's doing this in situ. It's calibrating. The soil is there. This is an IMO collection, beautiful collection. This is featured in my book, Regenerative Soil Microscopy and course. And this is some of my work here. Yeah. And so these are endophytic IMO. Uh, you can put this on plants and you have their plant sap inoculate it directly. And then you take that rice and you combine it with the sugar. And that is, again, a selection process, right? We've isolated, selected for, fed, and isolated. And so you have these sugar feeding, saprophytic endophytes and saprophytic molds that are going to digest things extra fast. They're trained, they're ready. And it's an essential inoculant for natural farmers. So it's selected fermentation based accelerated compost microbes. And so they make different forms of compost with IMO. And that's essentially what it is. It's a selected accelerant that's microbial. And so they're endophytes and saprophytes. And then hugelkultur. I love hugelkultures. I love how natural this idea is. You've got natural deadfall, woodfall in the forest, gets covered by soil and time, becomes this huge fungal event underground, soil building. It's moldering in a woody windrow. So woody compost, that's fungal food. Green fresh compost, that's bacterial food. So your vermicompost with your kitchen scraps, that's bacterial. Your orchard ramial wood chips in compost in a compost pile that's going to be fungal. So vermicompost, this is Eric Olson. It's moldering plus worms. So it's static composting plus worms. And this is a classic worm tub bin. And it's bacterial. And you could move it more fungal by feeding them things that are fungal, but it's still going to be heading towards that other direction. So you can give it those ingredients, but it's still heading that direction. And so kitchen waste, it's low in lignin, high in sugar, and good in moisture. That's the things that they thrive on. But you can feed them actual mushroom blocks, and they will feed up on that as well. And so there's too many kinds of compost to go through the Jean Pan, woody compost, and all that. That's in my books. But they all have strengths and they all have weaknesses. But once you understand the oxidative fermentation, bacterial, fungal, and then being like, well, what does that mean in relation to where I am? What are my needs? What's the gaps? What am I reinforcing? What am I maintaining? What am I transforming? What am I reinforcing? And what am I introducing? So, what if it's all bacterial, Matt? I've got the bacterial, Matt. What do I do? Well, fungal to bacterial ingredients, we need to just remember that. Maybe you're going to bring in some biochar, hold more water. And fungi loves biochar, loves it. And then maybe you're going to do, ramial wood chip compost that you're dressing everything with. Be lovely. All right. So, what if it's alkaline? Well, add something acidic and reduced, like just like EM, like bum ba bum bum bum. But I'm not gonna keep singing the A-Team song, but like EM1, they are literally selected endophytes that complete photosynthesis. That's what the yeasts do. Complete nitrogen synthesis, lactic acid bacteria, internal nitrogen fixation. All endophytes do that. An immunological trigger. All the microbes that go through rhizophagy cause that. So we are stepping into a known for the plant. The plant's like, oh, my gut biome feels so good because that's what these endophytes are. They're the gut biome of the plant. And that's why they complete photosynthesis because they are essential to the plant. They evolved together. And yes, I did just say that Saccharomyces cerevisiae, the beer yeast, the bread yeast, is in most plants, if not like literally almost all plants. and it's hard to prove, right? That's why we say it non-definitively like that. But it's always been in the grapes. It's always been on the grapes. It's always been in our annuals. It's always been there. And that's why alcohol was just going to happen. Just saying. Effective microbes, EM. This is it's a trademark name and product, but the microbes are not trademarked, so we can talk about them. You could be brewing with them and it's okay. But they are the best. They are incredible. So EM Row, this is an incredible product. There's new owners of Terraganics. That's who's joining us. Tajasa and Matt. That's who's joining us tomorrow. They are the new owners of Terraganics, and they're introducing so many new things. They're doing such a great job. And this is such an important thing. They're the ambassadors for EM Row in America. And so if you know about EM Row, you know that's where Dr. Higa that's his group and organization, and it's how he has spread EM all over the world. If you know Hyperdrive from Blue Sky Biochar, Michael Whitman, you know that Richard Kamalvathan, the inventor of this, was one of the farmers that worked directly for Dr. Higa and helped create Bokashi and EM, I think EM4 or EM5. It's in my interview with him on my podcast. But these are incredible people. Hey, Simeon's coming in. Hey. Oh my word. It's so nice to see so many people. So these are incredible products. This is an incredible thing. It is in the goodie bag, folks. So Terraganics, check them out. They're awesome. I like the Pro EM. It's incredible. See, it's lactic acid bacteria, it's lactobacillus, it's Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and Rhodosodomonas palustris, which is the mysterious purple non-sulfur bacteria that people have been talking about, right? That's what it is. And it looks like this. So what if it's acidic? Well, add something alkaline and oxidized. Hey, Simeon, thank you for being here. Folks, feel free to say hello to Simeon. He represents Hawassi Products, a sponsor, and the reason that we're getting 10% off to everyone, and then folks that sign up for the raffle, and the extra book and everything, they get 20% off. And so the H pack, just such great work. Thank you so much, Simeon. Please feel free to thank Simeon and say hello to Simeon in the chat. Hawassi Products is an amazing sponsor of this event. So add something alkaline and oxidized if you're acidic. And that's just the hot compost. Easy peasy. This isn't hard. And if you're like, Matt, I did the hot compost, but I'm all alkaline, pour EM over your finished compost. Let's go. It's 3.5 pH. Let's just transform the thing that you already put the good work in. It's good. It's good. It's just pH 8. It's good. It's got and this is what you'll find. You'll find the best compost has everything in it. It's still pH 8. And you don't want to do that to your soil if you're like at pH 7.5 and you're trying to head more to the Goldilocks region. You're not going to do that. No, you're going to add EM to it and you're going to acidify it there and then. And that's okay. It's okay. That's the thing is that I think that there were these camps that formed where it was like, oh, I'm not fermenting. I'm just all oxidative stress for my compost. And other people were like, I'm fermenting. I do not want the oxidative stress hot compost person. And the reality is the marriage of the two gets the best result. And also is just keeping your eyes open. You know what I mean? And doing what you is actually called for in the situation that you're in. So what if it's dry and oxidized? Well, add the organic matter. Growing crimp cover crops, growing cover crops that are reducers. And you're going to bring back the biology. I would add biochar, of course. I would add rock dust, and then keep the soil covered as much as possible. And then I would, yeah, add the biochar. And again, like I said, my boys, they have grown up doing this. Biochar coated in rock dust. And this is one of my pictures. This is done with manual lighting. For some reason, people weren't using side lighting on compound microscopes. I I figured this out and I have talked to people since then, and other people have done this privately, but no one ever talked about it. No one ever recognized anyway. Well, I don't know. People have said that in retrospect after I came out with this, but the microscope companies themselves were so amazed by this side lighting, angled lighting on a compost microscope. Because I was like, why are we doing linear light? Why are we only doing silhouettes? Because that's how everything is. They're doing slices, fine slices of the root to see through it instead of just looking from above. It's so nutty. So, I mean, there's so many things in soil science that were just so bizarre that I had to focus on debunking. I mean, they're numbers. We'll talk about that later. But but yeah, so I actually have a prototype for there we go. A prototype for a manual lighting system that I'm going to get the next prototype from LW Scientific soon, and we're going to start having the ability for everyone to do this more easily. So biochar holds 3 times its mass in water. It's the perfect inoculant and rock dust carrier in storage. It's perfect to holding all those microbes. And remember, it's an upgrade of your hardware. When few you're not going to change the clay, sand, and silt. You're not going to bring in clay enough for 50 acres to transform it. We can't do that. But biochar is light, and is so transformative that it is something we can do. Rock dust, and that's also so transformative that you don't need much. Basalt is best. 75% of all volcanic soils are basalt. So if you're like, I already am in a volcanic soil, Matt, probably have amazing soil. So, and they all have different things. So make sure to see what the tests, and this is averages. These are average what they have and not the amounts of what they have. So your basalt might be have some of these things. It might have all these things. I have more. And then it might have different ratios of these things. So you got to know where you're at. You got to look to see, right? You got to look to see. And so all these things, all these cycles, all these charts, all these ways of developing fluency and creating a holistic plan that gathers all this in and makes it really simple and easy is regenerative soil. So, what's the best compost for you is the real question here today. I hope that we've triggered some thinking, some reflection, and created an avalanche of action in our community. Because the reality is we have so much room for improvisation and artistry and exploration and experimentation and discovery right now. It's growth. We have an opportunity to grow in a way with soil and plants and in the science that we've never had before. So, what's your soil, your context, and your options? When you map those things out, you can see where the plan naturally falls. So, what can you expect when you figure all that out? Well, pest infection, virus, and disease immunity. The reality is the plants, the reason why, and many of us who've been gardening for a long time know, you have those situations where you're growing the same thing, and one plant's like getting destroyed, and the plant next to it's like the best plant there ever was. And no insect is touching it. I don't understand what's going on. Well, there is a difference between the photosynthesis, the minerals, the microbes, all those things are playing factors in it, and it could be dominant one of those things. But if one of those things is going right, it facilitates it for the others. So if you have the minerals there to do proper photosynthesis, then you actually have the health there that allows for those microbes to be selected for, fed for, bred at the right rate so that they can get the lipid synthesis and the plant secondary metabolites. So it is the case that if you get in this, it's very easy. When you get into the Goldilocks zone, suddenly things become easier. There's a reinforcement because they're all linked. It's like with mycorrhizal fungi with NAD production. Is NAD is part of the nitrogen cycle, nitrite to nitrate. And then it's all or actually reverse that nitrate to nitrite. And then it's also the cycle that is the first part of phosphate production. So they're all linked together. And the end result of all that's higher nutrient density because they all help each other. And so you're encoding everything at a higher rate. You're gathering more nutrients and putting them into their proper places because you can complete photosynthesis. You can complete nitrogen synthesis. And that faster maturation rate and higher yield is the result. So we've heard about these stories from John Kempf. We've heard about these stories from Albrecht. They're getting things that are happening faster, things that are higher yield, even though there's less time. I've experienced it. Once I transformed my soil, the next year I had my corn 30 days earlier. Yeah. So the adaptive mechanisms are inherent in the plants. They're just waiting for us to do our job and fix the soil. So increased secondary metabolites and aromatics, it's going to smell and taste better than anything. And those of you who have been to that biodynamic farm and eaten that biodynamic peach or had that, super regenerative tomato or that permaculture papaya, you're like, that was the best tasting one I've ever had. And you, meanwhile, were eating a bunch of microbes that were creating those same exact metabolites and aromas, and they're the ones doing it. And they're also the reason why that good food is good for your stomach because they are they are the same microbes. There's a huge overlap that are in your healthy gut. So it's all stacked. So you're like, oh no, 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 we're getting all these special nutrients and enzymes and all these. Who creates the enzymes? Who creates the enzymes? That's right. That's right. Not just the plant, it's the microbes. And so you got these, it's the microbes. Okay. So, so it really is the case that we're inoculating ourselves with the food we grow. We are inoculating ourselves or we are missing an opportunity. We got sterilized food, we have a sterilized gut, and we all know where that leads. And so where this leads is massive decrease in fertilizer inputs. And we'll see that tomorrow with Tajasa. She is a co-owner of Terraganics. I'm so excited for the growth, for the change, for where this company Terraganics is headed. And they are reducing nitrogen inputs for large scale farmers by 50%. Imagine one of your main budgetary costs as a farmer being cut in half. It's incredible. So this is real. It's really happening. And I mean there are tons of cases where people aren't using fertilizer, no nitrogen now. John Kemp touts this. It's one of his big things is that he is farmers with no nitrogen being successful. And it's because of the microbial necromass and arthropod necromass. So it's really important because all this turns into less work over time. They're not even adding nitrogen, right? But wait, we're just scratching the surface because the reality is it's a combination of all these things. It's the biology, the right biology for your context and your plants. It's the right minerals, it's the right organic matter, it's the right plants at the right time, getting enough photosynthesis with the right amounts of air and water. That's what regenerative soil is because that's how soil got here in the first place. It was created by natural processes, and we've been mining our soil rather than working with soil regeneratively for 10,000 years. That's why we have books like this. Thank you, David. Books like this. Sorry. Thank you, David Montgomery, for being here, a part of this community and part of this Our Soil 2024. But this is 10,000 years of history that shows that during Roman times, during the Greeks, during early America, during everywhere all over the world, they were, except for like Peru, where they had like the planting stick and they were doing no-till parts of the Aboriginal culture, even though they were by hand digging up the yams, they did it regeneratively so that the soil continued building in Australia. So We have a few examples. That's what permaculture is based off of, is the few examples of regenerative behavior throughout all time, throughout all cultures. And but most of it is us mining the soil. But soil got here for us to mine. How did it get here? Got here this way. And that's what my mission was. What's most natural? How did nature do it? Let's replicate nature. Let's follow nature because therein lies the truth. Therein lies the learning. And if we're open to it, we can learn so much. So I'm here to tell you that you can do this. You can learn this. You can gain your fluency in this space. You can take action. You can build soil. Thank you for being here. I'm Matt Powers. Thank you to our sponsors, LW Scientific, We Grow With, Hawassi Products. Hey, Simeon, thank you for being here. Microbiometer, Sustainable Growing Solutions, Terraganics, Natural Ecosystem Restoration, Green Cover, Fungi Perfecti, Elevate Ag, Extreme Gardening, Catalyst Bioamendments, Blue Sky Biochar, Cultivated Mind, and Canned Compost, Bokashi Earthworks, and Potent Onyx and Kiss the Ground, I should add. Thank you all for being part of this event. They're the reasons why we have such great goodie bags. They're the reasons why we have discounts. These are the other reasons why we have these amazing giveaways. And we've been able to have so many people join. We have thousands. We, we have over 20,000 people that are joining us this week. I hope that you guys understand this is potentially the largest gathering of people focused on soil that has happened on the internet ever in one place in 1 week for an online event. There's over 22,000 of us. So this is big. This is huge. And these sponsors help me promote to reach that many people. And this has never happened before. So I want to just seriously honor them for making this happen. I don't think anyone else has done this. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I don't think anyone else has done this. And it's because of their support. It's because of your participation. We could put it all out there and and no one came and you guys came, you showed up. This community is growing rapidly. This community is uniting rapidly. And it's culminating in better soil. It's culminating in better practice for farmers, gardeners, consultants, compost companies, landscapers, restoration folk, forestry, all of it. It's a powerful time. And I am just honored to be here to facilitate this and to have so much support. It really is just wild. So thank you, thank you, thank you to our sponsors. If you guys see folks from these sponsors in the mix, please thank them. And now let's do some live giveaways and then join us tomorrow for microbes that matter. I'll be getting into the specific microbes that really matter and why they matter and what we can do to take action to partner with them. That's tomorrow, same time as today. I hope to see you there. So if you have questions, let's get you answers and let's start with a giveaway. How was that, you guys? Let me know. Is that good? All right. I wanted to go deep. I know I've talked about composting for a context, personalizing compost for a long time, but I really wanted to make it valuable for you guys. I really wanted to make it actionable. And here we go. I see some awesome questions coming. Hummingbirds. Oh, Carol, thank you for being here. She says, awesome, Matt. Thank you, Carol. It's wonderful to see that you're here. Zane says, absolutely amazing. Kate says, great. Thank you, Matt. Punzo says, amazing. Teddy says, very informative. Try to pack it in. Thank you for being here, everyone. Fantastic day, says Helen. Thank you for being here, Helen. So great. Thank you so much, says Lacey. Oh, it felt actionable. Thanks for that. Thank you, Zoe. That's awesome. All right. So for a goodie bag, what's something new you guys learned? Share down below in the chat. What's something you learned today? Tatiana says biochar. I need to step up. I need to step up my Johnson Su bioreactor game, says Mary Ellen. I love it. Yes. Thank you for being here. I recognize so many of your names. You guys have been with us for so many years on so many of these lives. Artistry and compost capability. Yes. There's a reason why I always highlight Chris Trump as the natural farmer because he's like a chef. And there's a skill level, there's a touch, there's an artistry to it. He's been and he did I love the fact that he didn't make videos until he'd been doing it successfully on his family's commercial farm and gotten good at it. And he's like, when he's doing it, it's so good because he's been doing it and seeing the results. And there's a difference when you have that feedback loop within yourself. You do things with a different layer. Laura says context dictates what actions we take. Yes, yes, always. William Cott says combining different Johnson Sue blends. Ooh, yes. Kumar says, I also learned that there are woody things and foods to feed the fungal versus bacterial population. Excellent. Daisy said EH and varieties of truffles. Yes, yes. All right, Daisy, I want to give you a goodie bag. Yes, I want to give you a goodie bag, Daisy. So email me at mattpowerssoil@gmail.com or matt at thepermaculturestudent.com. I would put it in the chat, but it'll just get like, boom. It's usually what happens. So email me and I will send you a goodie bag. All right. I have biochar for 3 years and didn't know what to do with it. Laugh out loud. Oh my gosh, now you know what to do. I love it. Yes. How not to make biochar and how to. Yes, that was Kelpie, right? Oxidized alkaline compost for oxidized al acidic soil. Yeah, with the knowledge that the more organic matter you're holding, that it will reduce it. And as that compost ages, it becomes more reduced, especially in the presence of our plant roots. That's why it's such an important part of the equation because they're going to pump in the protons, which are acidifying. And if you inoculated the roots with fungi, fungi are acidifying. So, so yes, thank you for being here. All right. Johnson Sue, the EH has to do with wetness. I need to be testing my compost. Yes. Charlotte, Charlotte, I want to send you a goodie bag too. Okay. See, I'm getting crazy with the goodie bag. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna do this every day. We're gonna give away a ton of goodie bags. We do a ton of giveaways. All right. So Daisy Sandoval, email me at mattpowerssoil@gmail or matt at thepermaculturestudent.com. Congratulations. All right. All right. So next question. What's something that you've learned more about and now you want to study more about? What's something you want to now start studying more about? Something you want to dig in deeper with? I see these answers. These are good answers. Cindy says IMO. Yeah, I want to get into IMO to document it more, to document all the stages, to do DNA testing on it all. Kathleen says biochar. Yeah, biochar is amazing. Tatiana says compost. Jonathan says redox. D says IMO. So D, I want to give you this book. Deep dot. I want to give you this book. So message me at mattpowerssoil@gmail.com or matt at thepermaculturestudent.com. And I'm going to send you this book so that I help you investigate more deeply into IMO. And we'll have recipes in here and all of it. All right. Thank you so much for being here. We have one more giveaway. It is what you think it is. It's the microbiometer. So this is over $100 value. This is incredible. This is a holistic way of looking at soil. It tests the fungal to bacterial ratios, and it's really good because it allows us all to have something that's comparative across each other, that's independent, it's objective. And you can't, it's not infallible. If you have a biochar, this is why you need a microscope to balance with it. Can't do any tests independently. There are no tests that are one size fits all. There's no holy grail of tests that does everything. But it's actually the combination of tests that are often simple and very clear that allow us to really navigate. And the combination that gives us the ability to see where are we on this chart? Where are we in our improvement? And this is one of those key tools in that. And like I said, you could add like biochar dust to things. You could have anaerobic soot, like bad bag compost, and those kind of things can trick it. But if you use a microscope in conjunction with this, you won't be tricked. So it's really a powerful tool if it's used in conjunction with other tests. And this is why you see it being used by microscopy folk all over the world, by ranchers and farmers and dairy ranchers, all of it. They're all using this. And the more people that use it, the better the data gets, the more refined it gets. So I love them over there. This was a really a passion project that was started by someone who has now since passed away, and her daughter has taken it over and carried it forward for us. So it's a really special thing. It's an incredible tool, but it's also an incredible story. So I love these folks, and they are a sponsor as well. And this kit could be yours. So. What is one thing from the presentation that you learned today that was shocking, surprising, just out of the blue, like what? That you learned today in the presentation I just did? Zoe says, "Oh, Fab, I didn't know this is what I needed. I love it. Biochar and electricity in the soil. That my hot composting, that's Tatiana. And then Ronnie says that my hot composting won't be good for my alkaline oxidized soil. But if we add EM to it, we can transform that great job you did with the compost before you add it to the soil, right? So you can fix that still. It's not all is not lost, right? And you can even spike it with different things like biochar or EM or rock dust, so that when you add it, it really is mineral rich, and you know what I mean, all the things that it could be. So all is not lost. And Ronnie, yeah, all is not lost. Just know that your hot composting is a step and just a process. You have to go one more step and then pH it till it's right and then use it. So I just want, I just really want to know folks to know that like doing hot composting is really good. It's a really powerful way to deal with waste. Really powerful way to transform organic matter, but it's not the only way. And I feel like depending on our context, we really have to take that next step. But it's so easy. You're pH testing it and going, oh, let's add something acidic. It's really easy. You got this. Medical grade compost. We'll be talking about that later this week. Thank you for being here, Illinois Home Gardening Alliance. You moved to a harder site than that you moved to a harder site than the last one. Ha! Well, Texas is definitely harder. Hot compost alkalizes soil, says Dave. Health benefits of compost, says April. Crimping cover crop versus chop, says Gina. Composting isn't just compost, says PJ. I can put EM on my static pile, says Mary Ellen. Yes, yes. All right. The biochar can speed up the composting iPhone 3, keeping balance in fungal and bacterial, says Cindy. Well, Cindy, I want to help you in your effort to keep the balance between fungi and bacteria. And a key way to do that, Cindy, is with this. the microbiometer. So we're going to do that. We're going to ship this to you. Email me at mattpowersoil@gmail.com or matt at thepermaculturestudent.com, and I will send this to you. All right, we've done a lot of giveaways today. We've had incredible things arriving for us. We have just so many amazing things. If you guys, even if you guys don't win a goodie bag, remember that you can go back to r-soil.com and you can click on the other signups and you can sign up for a goodie bag. You can sign up to keep all these incredible videos. I know a lot of the comments today were, I've never heard anything like this biochar thing. Folks are really excited because they've never heard it taught the way Kelpie taught it. So I hope that you stick with us for the full 5 days. If you want to keep it, you absolutely can. If you want a goodie bag, you absolutely can. But remember, you could win it. I'm going to keep doing these. So join us. I'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock. And I'll just give it away now. I'm going to be showing, well, I'm going to be at 11 o'clock Central, 9 a.m. Pacific tomorrow. I'm going to be having Dr. James White on live. So we'll do it all with an audience. So we can have Q&A afterwards for a little bit, but it's a super special. It's going to be great. It the Actually, the reason why we're doing it live is because Dr. James White and I got on the phone the other day and put it on the screen, and then we ended up talking for an hour. Uh, and we just caught, and then I turned into a podcast because it was just us having so much fun catching up and just talking about where we are and what our thinking is, and it just was so much fun. It was a great conversation, and I just wanted to share it with you all. But at the same time, he literally had a presentation he was supposed to do. And I totally was like, did I derail that by talking with you like that? Yeah. We just have fun, you know. I mean, like Ray Archuleta and I, like on Sundays, we like end up like he'll be like, are you in church right now? And I'll be like, no. I'll be like, Matt, and like Ray is calling me, and I'm like, honey, I gotta go. Ray is calling me. And so it's just an incredible community. And I hope that you meet people here to build your community because all these folks that I've met at conferences and gatherings and events like this. I, Raleigh Latham, the guy who's facilitating that awesome compost retreat with Keisha and Casey Ernst down in Costa Rica right now, that a bunch of us, our friends and community is down there right now. Raleigh and I were in a mastermind with Neil Speckman, the guy that greened Saudi Arabia with just rainwater, and then greened the coastline of Africa where it's desert. That guy, we were all in a mastermind together right after Permaculture Voices in 2014, like right afterwards. And then it was also Hannah and Cassie, and they are the editors for Permaculture Magazine North America. So like I met all these people at these events. I These events are special. So take the time to share, check out the circle, introduce yourself, create a profile, share what you're doing, share your website, share what you're passionate about, share maybe a picture of your garden or your compost or an image from your microscope. But participate and reach out because these kinds of events are special. They're a time where we have a lot of fun. We gather and there's energy and enthusiasm, and you can meet someone that is a business partner, life partner, a friend, and someone who could be a teacher, someone who could help you to your next level of expression. I appreciate you all. I am so excited for this conference to continue. This has been an incredible day one. I am so honored to have so many people. I mean, it's exactly what I said. I could take like a screenshot and show you guys, but there is so many people involved in the speakers, but there's also so many people that you guys are bringing. You guys have shown up, and it's so wonderful to see how much community support there is for healthy food, healthy people, and healthy soils. So it is just an absolute honor to be here. And thank you. I'm Matt Powers. Grow abundantly, learn daily, and live regeneratively. And you all are unmuted, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you.
See everybody.
Thank you, Matt.
Here's my.
Thanks, Matt.
See you
Matt.
tomorrow.
Appreciate
Appreciate
you.
it, Matt.
Appreciate it.